Three. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 43 of the Mic'd in New Haven podcast, the first edition of the Mic'd in New Haven podcast that's going to be live on Zoom, live to go on my YouTube channel, which is MC's Audio, MC''S Audio, which you can find on YouTube. So I mentioned I would have my friends on in addition to every other guest, and those guests will be coming up soon. I booked some pretty exciting guests to come on in the near future, so you'll be seeing those folks soon. Obviously, you'll get the audio version of this podcast on all the available platforms. We're on iHeartRadio now. I'm on Spotify. We're everywhere, man, with the Mic'd in New Haven podcast. So my next guest is a guy I had the good fortune of meeting a few years ago in college. I met a lot of great people during my years at Gateway Community College in New Haven, Connecticut. And my next guest was definitely one of them. We used to talk shop a lot in the library at Gateway. We used to talk sports. We used to have very funny debates, very funny conversations, very intelligent conversations. And we're about to do that now because we're gonna be breaking down the upcoming 2020-2021 NBA season. A very short season, obviously, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but nonetheless, still worth previewing. And that is my main man, Marvin McIntyre, who is on the Mic'd in New Haven podcast. Now, Marvin, say hello to the people. Welcome. How are you?
Hey, what's up, everybody?
It's the first guest on Zoom, man. The first guest. So excited about that.
Yep.
We want to do a breakdown of both conferences, who we think is going to come out of the NBA playoffs, East and the West, Coach of the Year, MVP, Rookie of the Year. So let's just get right into it because we got, like I said, we had a 72-game season. It's not like the sprint in the bubble where things were a lot different because of obviously having traveled to one place and play amidst this pandemic. So you're going to be having basically in-market play. You know, you're not going to be moving around too much just because of limiting travel amidst as the virus still rages on. So, you know, first things first, what do you think about the 72-game format as currently constructed?
Um, I think it's interesting. I think it's just the timing of everything. It's too close. I think that they should definitely have maybe about a week and a half more preseason games, just
Right.
because of the possibility of someone getting injured.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it could be just too rushed. You know, it'll be too many people trying to gain where they need to be athletically and things like that. So I think that stuff matters.
Right.
So
No, that's a fair point, and we'll talk about that as we go along because, you know, fatigue plays a role. We saw that back in 2012 when they had the lockout. Fatigue played a role in the playoffs, and it resulted in some injuries. So, I mean, we'll start going through the conferences. We'll start with the East because the West is going to be a lot harder to break down. The East, I think, is interesting just because obviously in a post-LeBron James Eastern Conference is up in the air. Anybody could come out of the Eastern Conference, as we saw last year. I thought personally the Bucks were going to come out the East. The Heat ended up coming out the East, so now they're a factor. The Bucks are still a factor, especially now that Giannis is going to stay with that contract extension. You got teams like the Sixers that are still in the mix. Obviously, the Celtics got a great young squad. You're talking about the Pacers that, you know, I'm not saying they're a title contender. We'll talk about that as we go along. But you never know in this current playoff
they've
format.
never been a title contender. Never been a title contender.
Well, maybe in the '90s with Reggie Miller, but you know, it's definitely
Yeah.
definitely not in the two. You know, except for maybe the early 2000s, they had that one team in '04 that made the conference finals. But you know, and they were in the Eastern Conference Finals a few years
Yeah,
ago.
I meant more so like recent.
Yeah,
Within
well,
like the past
Oladipo,
like 5 years.
they've been a first-round playoff team at best, maybe second round, but they haven't reached that ceiling. But yeah, anybody in the East, if they get hot at the right time, it's kind of like there's no expression in hockey that if you got a hot goalie, you got a goalie on a hot streak, you can go very far. It's the same thing in basketball. So I'm gonna get your thoughts on the East. Like, what do you think right now about the East? Who do you like? Who do you not like?
I think it's open season. I think that the Nets are out second round. That's my prediction. I think that the Nets are definitely overrated. I think that Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, they're not leaders. And I definitely don't think that. I think that the reason why that Kevin Durant went to the Warriors is because that he did not want to be a leader. Uh, he wanted to lean on somebody like Steph. Kyrie Irving, he's a little bit all over the place.
Mm.
and you never know what you'll get from him. And
No.
plus, you got Steve Nash wanting to play. Steve Nash wants to play KD all 5 positions,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not looking good.
Right.
So, to me, it's not really looking good for game plan wise. I think that their ceiling is conference finals,
Mm-hmm.
but for anybody who assumes that they're going to get to the finals, that's over the top.
I mean, they looked good last night against the Celtics. I know it's preseason, obviously, and you try not to put too much stock into it. But, obviously the Celtics are coming off an Eastern Conference Finals appearance. And they look pretty good. I mean, both of them, they'll have their nights when they're going to score at a pretty good clip. I mean, Kyrie, I think, had 25. KD had, 25 or 28 points. I can't remember off the top of my head. But they both played quite well and combined for over 50. So, I mean, I think in an Eastern Conference, I mean, I guess, honestly, I kind of tend to agree. I think if somebody gets injured on one of these other contenders, then maybe the Nets slip in. But you never. I mean, in fairness, you never know because there's been weaker teams in Nets history that have gotten to the finals. I mean, no disrespect to Jason Kidd, who's obviously a surefire Hall of Famer, but those Nets teams of 2002 and 2003, it was just really him, Kenya Martin, and a couple of really good role players. That's about it. Because I mean, that team making the finals back-to-back years was a product of a weak East, and I think if the Nets are going to make the finals now, it's kind of like the same story, which much better players, obviously, but kind of the same situation. So, I mean, I don't want to go through every single team in the Eastern Conference because we'll be here all night. But, again, 72 games. We know who the contenders are. A little bit of personnel changes. Al Horford, for example, got traded out of Boston, not Boston, excuse me, Philadelphia, rather. He's in OKC now. Gordon Hayward leaves Boston, I should say, and he's out now with Charlotte. Who has an interesting squad. So a bit of transactions, of course, that affect the Eastern Conference in some ways, some more major than others, obviously. Giannis, of course, choosing, as I mentioned just now, choosing to stay in Milwaukee. So if you had to line up your conference 1 through 8, who are you taking? Who are you picking in order?
I'm going to go with the Bucks at number 1.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to be the best team in the East again.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the Raptors at number 2.
Right.
And that's just from the That's just from the chemistry that they have gained from being with each other.
Right.
And plus, I think that Pascal Siakam is definitely gonna step up his game even more. I wouldn't quite call him a superstar, but I would say that he's a star player.
Yeah, he's getting there.
So he's definitely getting there.
Right. Yeah.
And then I would say that the Pacers, they've always been like a 4 seed.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, I would honestly put the Nets there. I would say that they would get a good amount of wins, just based on Kyrie and KD having to resort to one-on-one ball,
right,
which happens a lot. So they're definitely going to be having a good time doing that. So
right, yeah, for sure. I think.
But I would put the Pacers at number 5 though. At number 5, yeah.
And who would be your 6 through 8?
My 6 through 8, I would have the Wizards at 6. I would say the Magic at 7.
That's fair. They kind of been there the last couple of years anyway.
And believe it or not, I'll put the Hornets at number 8.
So the Sixers don't make it, in your opinion? Sixers are out?
Ooh, I forgot about them.
Because Embiid, Simmons. I mean, I don't know if they'll get Harden, but I don't want to jump ahead because that's an if. That's speculation.
I'm gonna put the Sixers at 7, and I'll take out the Magic.
And you put the Hornets at 8. Yeah, I mean, because that's fair. Because I didn't mention this when I was talking about transactions that affected the Eastern Conference. Obviously, the major one out of all of them is Westbrook getting traded to the Wizards. John Wall goes out to Houston, and we'll talk about how that trade impacts Houston when we talk about the Western Conference in just a moment. But Russ is he's in Washington now. And much like he was in OKC and not like he was in Houston, he's the number 1 option. He is the guy that the team will be revolving around offensively, for better or worse. Obviously, of course, they have Bradley Beal at their disposal as well, and he's still a very highly effective player. And they have some guys on that bench that are pretty solid as well. I mean, I like Thomas Bryant. He's not a bad player, not a bad starting center to have. Thomas Satoransky's not a bad shooter. They just drafted Denny Advija. I probably butchered his last name, but Denny was looking really good in preseason. Solid passing. As far as his court vision goes, as far as his basketball IQ goes, he looked good. So, I mean, I think the Wizards, I'm not picking them to go to the Eastern Conference Finals or anything like that. But no, we were talking about the Wizards off the air a couple weeks ago. I think the Wizards can make some noise this year. Maybe they could even sneak into a 5 seed. Who knows? I think the Wizards on paper right now are even with the Pacers, if not, dare I say, slightly better than Indiana.
That's a good point. But the thing is that I would say Russell Westbrook has more playoff experience than Victor Oladipo.
Right, yeah.
So I would say that helps more. So that's a good example. I definitely you make a case that the Wizards could be over Pacers. You could definitely make that case.
And I think we ought to put Philadelphia higher. I'll give you my 1 through 8. The way I see it, because I didn't factor in Philadelphia. And one note on Pascal Siakam, I think one reason that I believe he'll take the next step is he's experienced the highest of highs in his sport very early on in his career. And that's, of course, winning a championship. And he wasn't a bench player for that championship. He was a pivotal, key contributing player to why the Raptors won their first championship in franchise history. But also, he experienced failure. He experienced that bad Game 7. He experienced, putting up a dud in a key situation. And so he's young. He'll learn from that. And obviously, he strikes me as a guy, as that whole team really strikes me as being hungry for more. They don't want to just get one chip. They want more than that. And Siakam's got a legacy to carve out. So I think that failure will definitely serve him well. So if I had to pick, I agree with your number 1 seed. I got the Bucks coming out as number 1. We talked about it. They're a great regular season team, but the playoffs seems to be their Achilles heel. Of course, the conference finalists a couple years ago. This past season, of course, to get knocked out by the Heat in 5 games in the second round. I got him as the 1 seed. They'll dominate. Giannis, of course, even though he hasn't quite mastered the art of shooting quite yet, he'll still be a perennial MVP candidate as long as he's healthy. And that Bucks team, they'll be the number 1 seed.
He's getting better and better.
And he's not afraid to take the shots. Ben Simmons, who we'll get to in a little bit, that's a different story. But I know Giannis is not afraid to take those kinds of shots. And yeah, as you said, the practice makes perfect. He'll get better as that goes along. So the Bucks are number 1 for me. Obviously, the New York Knicks are number 2. No, I'm kidding. The Bucks are number 1. I'll take the Raptors at number 2. I got the Celtics at number 3. I'll put them in my number 3. I think they'll take it. It'll be tough because they'll be missing Kemba for the first couple of weeks, and that's going to hurt them, I think. But once they get Kemba back, I think, and as Kemba gets back into the game rhythm, once he's back from his knee injury, they'll be fine. And obviously, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and guys like that, they'll carry them through. They're a very young and talented team. So I got the Celtics taking a step back to Toronto, and they'll be the number 3 seed, just as they really were this past season. Number 4, in a weak Eastern Conference, you can get by on talent alone. We've talked extensively about Brooklyn over the last few months as KD and Kyrie have gotten ready to get back into in-game action, live-game action. I'm going to put Brooklyn number 4 just because their talent with those two is good enough, and they can sneak into a top 4. So I think that you had the Nets in number 4, right? I believe.
Yes, I did.
So our top 4 is the same. I have no disagreements with that. Number 5, I'll put the Sixers. You had the Sixers a little lower. I'll put the Sixers because the same thing. The talent is there to where they should be good enough to be a top 5 team in the Eastern Conference because the personnel really hasn't.
But the reason why.
Go ahead.
The reason why that I would say that Sixers are a 7 seed is because of how dysfunctional the team is. It's very dysfunctional. Doc Rivers, he's proven himself to be a very overrated coach.
Mm-hmm.
He's choked up a 3-2 a 3-2
series lead.
He was up 3-2.
3-1.
He was up 3-1. and he was up 3-1 again.
Mhm.
Uh, so he's definitely had his share of choking, and to me, he's I would say that he's like he just doesn't have. He's very good at motivating players. He's
Right.
good at motivating players, but
Yeah.
he's not a good coach. You can never depend on him to execute the right plays.
Right. He's not Phil
So
Jackson.
that's his problem.
Right. Yeah. And you. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
He's not he just doesn't have it in him to be able to do that. All he's talking is just he has the voice for it, right? But he doesn't have the he has the voices. Sometimes he may even have the motivation, but it's like how he you know treats star players. Like I
Mhm.
heard that he treats them with more value than he does the role players. Like I heard that Tim Duncan, he was treated the same as everybody else on the team, much
Mhm.
like what Belichick does with Tom Brady. He treats everybody the same.
Yeah.
So that's what helps with the winning. But as for somebody like a Doc Rivers, you may get favorites.
Right.
So
And
that's his problem. And the thing is like Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, they already don't really play that well together.
right.
They really don't. So I think that they would be much better traded. One of them needs to be traded.
And we'll touch on that. And
But
yeah,
the thing is that right. Yeah, go ahead.
no, we'll touch on that. And I was just gonna say you cut out there for a little bit, but we heard you came back. So the general gist for those of you that might have missed what Marvin was saying is that he feels that the Sixers are dysfunctional, just because of the pieces that right now don't really seem like they fit. And maybe Doc Rivers, in my opinion, can change that. I tend to doubt it. But your point was, just so people don't feel like they missed out, is basically that Doc Rivers, as far as the X's and O's are concerned, what Marvin was saying is that he doesn't find him to be a very good coach. And of course, there was that story in The Athletic about preferential treatment. Kawhi and Paul George could choose which games they wanted to play, when they wanted to rest, where they wanted to travel
Exactly.
from, and whatnot. And listen, treating a star with preferential treatment, it has its drawbacks, of course. It also has its pluses, because you do want to keep your best players happy, but at the same time you risk being overrun, and you risk, of course, creating locker room discontent, which happened in Los Angeles, because maybe, obviously Pat Beverly, for example, Marcus Morris, for example, Lou Will, for example, they don't have the stature in the league. They've had good careers, obviously, but they don't have the stature that Kawhi Leonard has, or that even a Paul George, despite the fact that he's been the victim of so much slander lately, has to an extent in the league. But of course, as you said, everyone wants to be treated equally. So I'm curious of how it'll work in Philadelphia. You mentioned that one of them needs to be traded. If you were Daryl Morey, who's also a new addition to the franchise now as their general manager, he's curious. Obviously, he wants to tinker with the roster. I expect him to basically create Houston 2.0 in Philadelphia in due time. If you were to choose between trading Simmons or trading Embiid, who goes and why?
I would trade Embiid.
Mm-hmm.
I would trade Embiid because if like Ben Simmons, he's a great passer. All you have to do is just put shooters around him, and the next thing you know, he's like the next Magic Johnson.
Right.
Or he will appear to be the next Magic Johnson. But the thing is that that's what they need in order for the success to really happen for Ben Simmons. Like if you put Ben Simmons on a Golden State or or just a team around shooters, like I'm trying to think of a team full of shooters. The
Well, you can
Celtics
throw
or something
Houston in
like
there. You can throw Houston.
Houston, right? Houston, right? They would they could definitely be a conference finals contender
Mm-hmm.
because of because plus he plays defense very well, right? He's a very great passer, and plus he's a playmaker, so he can score as well. So and plus like with him, I do think that he is gonna eventually start shooting, but as of right now, he's just he's taking his time with going straight to the rim, which is exactly what Magic Johnson used to do himself. He was not prone to be a great shooter at first, but he grew into it. So, but I'm not trying to say that he's the next Magic Johnson, but his ability to pass the ball is very very up there. But I definitely don't think that him and Joel and who I'm sorry. I definitely don't think that him and Joel Embiid can coexist because of them both being two alphas. Think about it.
Right.
What's his name? Joel Embiid. He's not like a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he was an alpha, right? But he was like he played his role as like a complimentary superstar.
He was willing to do both, especially as he got older in LA.
Right, exactly. So he was willing to transition. Joel Embiid, he's still young. He still think that he is that guy.
Right.
So it's harder for him to want to do what everybody else is saying is right for the team.
And you know who had that same attitude? AI. You know, and for as much as many people love AI, listen, salute to AI, great career, Hall of Famer. That was really the beginning of the end of his tenure in Philadelphia, that he wasn't willing to defer in some aspects. He felt that it was his team through and through, and he wasn't willing to change, which is why those Sixers teams really after that run to the finals in 2001 didn't accomplish that much. They were a first round and out team throughout the rest of his tenure. Didn't even make the playoffs at all towards the end of his tenure. And that you kind of get that with Embiid. I would trade. I want to keep Simmons. I really do because I love his game. And who knows? There's rumors out there. Woj dropped a tweet the other day saying that he's been included in potential trade packages to go to Houston in exchange for James Harden coming to Philadelphia. Now, if that comes to fruition or not, we don't know. I trust it because it comes from Woj, obviously, one of the premier sources on NBA news. I mean, if it comes from Shams, if it comes from Woj, Chris Haynes, you trust it because you know those guys are plugged in. But, for me, I think there's questions about Embiid's motivation. There's questions about if Embiid has that desire to really be the best, because there are guys that come in with natural talent and simply coast on that talent. They don't really work to improve on it. They don't understand truly how great they are, and there's no drive there. Like, we always one of the reasons that we love The Last Dance, and one of the reasons that people revere Michael Jordan as a ball player, and I'm not comparing Embiid to Jordan, obviously, because there is no comparison, but we talk about great athletes that had great careers. There was a drive for excellence. There was never a satisfaction. Jeter comes to mind in that aspect as well, or Gretzky, if you're a hockey fan, comes to mind as well. I think I would trade Embiid, and I don't mean to make this into a first take ESPN Stephen A. Smith Max Kellerman thing where Max Kellerman or Stephen A. Smith just says something opposite to what the other guy said just for the heck of it. I tend to agree with your theory on Simmons. I would love it if Simmons was if you can trade Simmons to one of these teams with shooters like you talked about, it would do wonders for his game. If Simmons was in Golden State in that offense with Stephen Curry, even without Klay Thompson right now, which we'll talk about a little later, it would be great. I think though you can get a greater return for Joel Embiid, because Joel Embiid for me.
Agree.
I can't think of a big man in the NBA right now, meaning centers, because if you want to talk power forwards and include that in the discussion, well, then there's obviously you'd have to give preferential treatment to Anthony Davis. But as far as centers are concerned, I don't think there's a center right now in the NBA that is better than Joel Embiid. He is the premier big man at that position. So if you're talking
he might be the second best. I would put Jokic above him.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah, Jokic. He's definitely up there.
The thing is like, as far as durability, he's not very durable. Like, he does not really, like, I don't think that I've ever seen him play 70-plus games.
Right. And he didn't play at all for the first 3 or 4 years of his career. He was drafted, as people may remember, in 2014. He didn't play his first game until, I believe, 2017, 2018. So it's taken him a while. And, of course, there's concerns, naturally, about that. But there's also those aspects of him. It's the same question that people used to ask with Shaq, and for as great a career as Shaq had, obviously one of the greatest players of all time, there was always that question of, well, if he only worked harder, how much more could he have accomplished? Still accomplished a lot.
Right.
4 rings, 3 finals
Right.
MVPs, but he didn't have the drive. I go back to this great story that came out of Phil Jackson, that when the Lakers were going for the three-peat, I told you this story before, but my listeners have never heard it, or most of them probably haven't heard it. They're going for the three-peat, and training camp was pushed back a little bit in 2001 because of the tragedy of 9/11. So this Lakers didn't get together to train until much later in September because of air travel having been delayed because of what had happened. And they finally get to camp. They're finally able to meet up with each other and come back for wherever they were chilling out in the summer of 2001. And Shaq is way out of shape. Way out of shape. And Kobe looks at him and says, "Why aren't you in shape?" And Shaq shoots back and says, "Don't worry, by midseason, I'll be game ready." You know what? That was Shaq's philosophy, and he was.
Yeah.
And of course, the Lakers went on to three-peat and sweep the New Jersey Nets, and that's kind of Embiid's attitude. You know, it's lackadaisical, but nonetheless, you can't deny that talent. And if you put him in a hard system where a coach is really on top of him, and I'm not talking a head coach, but a developmental coach, and really works with him on his diet, and really works with him on him studying film and constantly being motivated, there's no telling what you can get out of him. So if you're going to dangle Embiid as a carrot in a trade package, I think that provides a greater return than Ben Simmons, because Joel Embiid, unlike Ben Simmons, for as much as I love Simmons, is a better shooter. So you're getting more. Joel Embiid can knock down the three. Joel Embiid has the classic big man post game, as I moved my computer there by accident. You know, there's more to offer. There's more to like with Embiid than there is with Ben Simmons.
I do think that Joel Embiid needs to spend more time in the post.
Of course.
I definitely think that he needs to. I think that he needs to spend more time in the post so then he could make his game more dominant. So then basically when he stretches out to the three, then it's like a complimentary three. Mm-hmm. It's not like it happens like every 2-3 possessions. You know, like what happened in the Toronto series.
Right.
You know, he shot like 3 or 4 threes in a game. I'm like, bro, what are you doing?
But that's the modern big man.
Doing?
That's the modern big man. I mean, if we were looking at this 20 years ago or 25 years ago, if we were having this conversation in 1995, Arvydas Sabonis would be a revolutionary figure for us, because Arvydas Sabonis was really the first big man to start shooting threes in addition to the post game. That's the modern big man, though. I mean, Brook Lopez.
I wouldn't really say that. I would say that it was Bill Laimbeer.
Bill Laimbeer, you know, and Manu Bull had one game where he knocked.
I think he was the first. I think he was the first. So
yeah, you can throw Laimbeer in there. But I mean,
I think he was like the first stretch center.
But as far as the first hybrid center that I can really think of that basically was way ahead of his time, and if you put him in today's NBA in his prime would thrive, is Sabonis, because Sabonis' game was so beautiful and crisp in that he could post you up and score on you, but he could also hit a three from the outside and shoot it just as well as a point guard or a shooting guard or even a small forward could. And so that's essentially. I think if you just strictly have him post up, you're essentially pushing him back in time as opposed to making sure he stays with the times. Because Brook Lopez is a great example of this. Brook, for many years, I saw Brook up close and personal in New Jersey. You know, he was a post up, your classic, typical run-of-the-mill big man, post up, rebounds, down low, banging down low and scoring. That was him. And then he started to work on his threes to where now you see him in Milwaukee. He hits them not only does he hit threes, he takes them at a good clip, he makes them at a good clip. So I think with Embiid, you just have to make sure there's a balance there. Don't take away his three-point game. Keep it, but make sure he doesn't forget to use his size to dominate down low.
Yeah, I mean, I think they just need to mix it up.
That's fair. That's fair.
Mix it up, but have more post up. That's all.
Yeah, you can involve that. And obviously, if they stay together, Simmons' passing game is crisp enough to where there'll be plenty of opportunities for Joel to post up down low. Plenty. You just have to make sure that you have good shooters around them that can help in case Joel needs to kick it out for like a three-pointer. So we'll see what happens there. We gave our 1 through 8. Did I finish my 1 through 8? No, we stopped on the Sixers. Okay, so I had the Sixers.
You got stuck on the Sixers.
Yeah, we got stuck on the Sixers. I had the Sixers at 5. I'll take the Wizards at 6. I think I
Okay.
like the Wizards roster, what you talked about earlier. I like their setup. I think there's great potential there. Plus, Westbrook is reunited with Scott Brooks again, his old coach in Oklahoma City. So I'm curious to see how that works out. I think it'll work out well. 7, I'll go the Pacers just because we don't know how Oladipo is going to come back and play after the debilitating injury he suffered. A lot of guys don't really come back too good from that, so I want to see how he'll come back after his knee injury. And at 8, I do agree with your pick about the Hornets. I mean, the Knicks are a ways away. Orlando's a solid squad, but the Hornets intrigue me. I don't think LaMelo's going to come out right away and have a rookie season like some of the greats of the past. I don't think he's going to have the immediate impact. I mean, I don't want to compare him to LeBron because that's a stupid comparison, but like we saw the impact that Carmelo Anthony had on the Denver Nuggets right away when he was a rookie. And so I don't know if LaMelo will have that kind of impact. But it's not a bad squad. You got Scary Terry there. Gordon Hayward is there. I know he just suffered a fracture
Yeah.
on one of his fingers, but, there's great talent there with Hayward. I wouldn't have given him that contract they gave him. But he's a solid player to have on your squad, especially if you're run of the mill or in the middle right now, as the Hornets are. I think if things break right for him, and LaMelo shows great strides in his rookie year, and Hayward is able to play like he played last year where he averaged 18, 7, and 4 on 50% shooting, I think the Hornets can sneak in there.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think that LaMelo Ball, I could see him playing like a little bit better than his brother in his first year. So
yeah, he's already, he's ahead of
because he wants to score. He wants to score, and he's a very good playmaker as well. So
right, and there's
I
that
would definitely
balance.
agree with that.
I think he's gonna. I
Like,
said this to you before, and I'm talking to my buddy Marvin McIntyre here on episode 43 of the Mike in New Haven podcast. We're previewing the 2020-2021 NBA season. I think he'll give the Charlotte Hornets the same shot in the arm that Baron Davis did. I think he's going to be really good for this team, and the impact can be felt. I think it might be felt right away. So let's jump ahead to the NBA playoffs in the Eastern Conference. Let's see how it lines up, of course. So we have our teams picked out. As far as who we think, I think we both might agree. I'll give it to you first. Who do you think is coming out the East?
I never really did. Shoot. Oh shoot! You know who we forgot about, bro?
Who?
The Heat.
Oh yeah, we didn't even. Wow, we didn't even. We disrespected the
We
Heat.
even yo, we really did.
Rank them in our. This is live podcasting, and it's
Yo,
fine.
we really disrespected the
We
Heat.
really disrespected the reigning Eastern Conference champions. My apologies to all the Heat fans out there.
We really
didn't mean
forgot
to.
about the Heat. That's
We're out
crazy.
here breaking down Charlotte Hornets basketball and giving the Nets the 4 seed. Meanwhile, the defending.
Hold on.
We got to re-rank them then.
I gotta readjust them. I'm gonna have to put the Heat at the 2 seed.
All right, so that's tough. So if I had to re-rank them, I mean the Bucks still stay number 1. I think you know what? If Julius ever hears our old college buddy, if Julius ever hears this podcast, he might strangle me and throw at minimum he might throw his phone across the room. I think the Heat are better than the Celtics are. I don't think they're better than Toronto is. I don't think they're better than Toronto is. But and again, my apologies to all the Heat fans that may hear this. We didn't mean to disrespect your squad like this. They're better than the Celtics, so I'll slide the Heat into the 3 seed. They're still behind Toronto or Tampa Bay because you're going to be playing in Tampa this year because of the pandemic. They're still behind the Bucks, but they'll slide into the number 3. I'll put Boston 4. I'll give Boston 4. They're a top 4 team in the Eastern Conference, in my opinion, as long as they stay healthy. I'll slide the Nets down to 5. I think I'll still keep the Wizards. I'll put the Sixers at 6. No pun intended. Wizards can be number 7. And I'll put the Pacers 8, which would knock the Hornets and the Magic back some. So, yeah, that would be my reformatted 1 through 8.
You know, the Heat is actually. I mean, I'm sorry. The East is actually tougher. It's tougher now.
It's a lot better because with LeBron, I don't mean to blame this on LeBron, but LeBron, which is a testament to how great a player he is, that when he was in the Eastern Conference. Well, I mean, if you take advantage of bad competition or weaker competition, I mean, I can't knock a guy for that. Because if he didn't, I mean, we're not talking about the Eastern Conference of the 2000s where the Pistons were really good. The Celtics had Pierce and Garnett and Allen. that this is a different Eastern. The Eastern Conference of the 2010s, not the 2000s, is far weaker. If LeBron didn't get to the finals as much as he did with the Heat and the Cavs, I think that would hurt his legacy more than if he gets there and into the finals and loses. Because it's easy to run through the East, or was when he was in it.
Wait, listen. And from 2011 all the way over to 2018.
He was in every NBA Finals. Yes, it's an incredible run.
That's a very long time of having the best roster in the league in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it's fair.
And basically, or whatever, LeBron, he left at the right time. He left at the right time. He went to the Lakers at the right time.
Right
because
when the East was starting to get a little better.
If he were still in the East, he would not make the finals. He wouldn't. All right, it will be still Kawhi.
I think if Kawhi on that Raptors team in 2019, I think if they match up with the Cavs, the Raptors win that series because that's all the Raptors were missing. Obviously, they were missing a guy with the experience. I hate to use the old cliche of the guy who's been there, but no, listen, Kawhi's been there. You know, he's done that.
And as a matter of fact, if Kawhi Leonard stayed if Kawhi Leonard stayed with the Raptors, they would beat the Lakers.
Yeah, I could see that happening because it's a more well-rounded roster than the Lakers roster is. Lakers had a good championship roster, don't get me wrong, but the bench is a lot deeper in Toronto than it is in Los Angeles per se. Because when you're winning championships with Alex Caruso coming off the bench and Kuzma and JaVale McGee, Shaq and a full MVP, no disrespect to those guys, but compare that to Toronto's bench, I think I'd have to give the Raptors the edge in a series with Kawhi on a team, of course.
Right, especially since they have already done it.
Yeah.
So, and you already do know the leadership that Kyle Lowry brought to the team.
Mm-hmm.
So it only helped that Kawhi Leonard was on the team. So
right. So yeah, that's true. He left at the right time. I can concur with that statement because obviously that Cavs roster was getting weaker by the year. Losing Kyrie doesn't help. I mean, it was always up and down with Kevin Love. So yeah, that's a fair point. But I guess just to get back onto the original topic, now that we've gotten the Heat into the discussion, and we remembered that they exist. I mean, I can't believe we forgot about them like that. It's our fault.
Yeah.
I guess it changes the discussion now. Who do we think comes out of the Eastern Conference? Because I mean, I'll before I give my opinion, I'll defer to you on this one. Now that we've included,
I didn't give my one. I did not give my 1 through 8 edit now.
Oh yeah. Give the 1 through 8 to edit because I gave mine. I put the Heat at number 3. Where do you put the Heat in now? The defending Eastern Conference champions. Where do they fit?
So I might have to literally take the Hornets out. If they get a 9th seed, then that'll be great. But I might have to literally take them out.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm gonna put the Bucks at number 1, the Heat 2. I'm gonna put the Celtics 3, and then I'm gonna put the Nets 4.
Mm-hmm.
The Pacers 5, because Nate McMillan, he's always been very consistent as a coach.
Yeah, well, he's been axed. He's been given the boot.
Oh yeah, shoot.
Yeah, unfortunately, which is not his fault. I mean, listen, he took some Pacers teams to the playoffs, and that was a bad firing. And they gave him an extension too, which is stupid. So Nate's out. So he's out of the equation.
But they still have Sabonis. He's still a baller. He's proven himself very well.
I like Sabonis a lot.
And Miles Turner, he's improving every year. So I mean, he's improving and getting better every year. So I'll take them at number 5. And who are the other teams? The Sixers at 6. Sixers at 6. I'll take the Wizards at 7.
That's fair.
And let me see. I guess I'll go with the who's the last team? I mean, what were all the teams that you named? I kind of just went straight through it.
No, it's fine. I put here my 8 as 1 through 8, I should say, was Milwaukee, Toronto, Miami, Brooklyn, Philadelphia
Dag,
at
I think I let the Nets out.
at 5. No, you put the Nets at 4. I put
I did?
Philadelphia at 5. Did I put
Okay, so
Philadelphia? Oh my God, this is terrible. But no, yeah, I put Philadelphia. Let me see. I put Boston at 4 actually, and then I put the Brooklyn at 5. Then I put the Sixers at 6, as we just talked about. Washington at number 7, and I had the Pacers at 8.
okay. All right. Well, then I have the Magic at 8.
Which is fair because that's pretty much where they've been the last few seasons. They've been your perennial 8 seed.
Right.
That's kind of been their ceiling.
Which is only a testament to how good Vucevic is. He just
Yeah,
doesn't
and
have
Aaron
any
Gordon
good
has
players
his
on
moments too. You know, Aaron Gordon has his moments.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. He
Yeah.
does. Yes.
They need to add a little bit, but they're there. Like listen, I'm a Knicks fan. I take what the Orlando Magic have had for the last few seasons. Yeah, just make the 8 seed, get washed in the first round. I'll take it. It's better than anything I've been watching for the last 15 years. Although I think that's about to change. So coming out of the Eastern Conference now in the postseason, I guess first, you know what? Before we get to who we think is going to come out of the East, who do you think is going to surprise people in the playoffs in a positive way? Who do you think will surprise? Who do you think will disappoint?
Dag. Who is? I think the shoot. Who's gonna? That's a good question. That's a very good question. But I think that the Bucks are gonna surprise people this season.
You think this is the year they break through?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so you have the Bucks coming out the East. Okay.
I do.
Who do you, and as far as who do you think has a team with a lot of expectations? Oh, they might make some noise, but they don't do that much in the postseason. Who do you think that team will be in the Eastern Conference?
Honestly, the Heat.
That's fair.
Wait, hold on. Wait, hold on. Hold on.
All right, not the
The
Heat.
Celtics. The Celtics.
Julius is gonna hate us for that. Well, I mean, listen, because I mean, listen, now is where it gets interesting with Boston. I can understand your original point about the Heat. The bar's been raised. You were just in the finals. How do you follow that up? There's potential for disappointment there. Boston's more.
I can see. Wait, hold on. I can see the Heat making the conference finals.
They're very well coached, and it's pretty much the same roster. So they could, unless they get injured catastrophically. So.
Right, and and I can see it being a 7-game series, right?
Oh yeah,
against the Bucks.
Jimmy's not going to let it go. Only 5. I mean, listen, you saw what he did in the finals. Jimmy single-handedly pushed that almost to a game 6.
Right. And the thing is, like, I wouldn't be surprised if the Heat won that series.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised if they won that series.
Yeah.
But the thing is that the Celtics, Kemba Walker is not that guy. He's really not.
Yeah. He's not. You know, but go ahead. Sorry, my bad.
I think that he will improve because you know this will be his 3rd playoff run, I believe.
Yeah.
Is it 3rd or 4th?
4th because he made the playoffs. Well, I mean, when the Hornets were known as the Bobcats, they made the first round in 2014 and got their doors blown off by the Heat.
Right.
So that was his first. 2016, he lost to the Heat without LeBron. This is when Dwayne Wade was running the show, older Dwayne Wade, that is. And they lost in 7 in the first round. So that was his second. So really, last season was his – because he came to the Celtics in 2019. Last season was I believe, his 3rd playoff run.
Right. So it'll be his 4th playoff run. So I think that he'll play a little better, but I don't think that he'll be good enough to stop anybody. And plus, I don't think that he'll be able to put up the good numbers that he used to put up in college.
No,
he's not the same. Not the same player.
Right, and I think that it's interesting now with Hayward's departure. I know a lot of Celtics fans were not exactly sad to see, at least the ones I saw on Twitter, weren't exactly sad to see Gordon Hayward leave. But now that he has left, I'm curious. I'm like, you know, this really should be the time, even with the existence of Kemba Walker, this really should be the time that the Boston Celtics officially become Jason Tatum's team. And I'm curious, now that he's in a position where he really can be the number 1 option and should be the number 1 option if Brad Stevens wants to make him the number 1 option, I'm wondering if he can really how a Boston Celtics squad looks offensively speaking with Jason Tatum being its number one option, because I just Kyrie's a weird guy, and you don't need us to tell you that. You can see it. Obviously, he's a very unique character, to say the least. And so that being said, I think in general, the pieces just didn't fit there. Tatum was blossoming to such a degree that I don't think that partnership would have been ever able to work, because when Kyrie's healthy, Kyrie can run an offense beautifully. Say what you will about the guy and his personality, he knows how to run an NBA offense. He's done it before, and even with LeBron James, he's made it look beautiful and so crisp. And I think he'll do the same thing in Brooklyn as long as he stays healthy. But that being said, with a talent like Tatum, he had to deal with that. Then Kyrie leaves, but Hayward's still around. And Hayward, on his best day, I think is good enough to be a number one option. Not, before his leg injury, certainly was, and he had his moments last season, although he didn't have that great of a playoff run. And that being said, now that Hayward's out the door, even with Kemba still being there, Kemba's a bit diminished because of the bad knee. I really do think that if all goes well, I'll have to contradict you there. Maybe the Celtics. I guess I'd have to pick the Celtics as my team that can surprise people. And and it's tough to say that, obviously, because people have high, excluding Celtics fans, I should say, people have high enough expectations for the Celtics as it is. But I think, this flame out that some might expect to happen in the second round of the conference finals, I don't think it'll happen this time around. I think Jason's going to take a huge leap. He's already taken significant leaps in his career. I think he'll take a bigger one.
He could.
And I think he'll lead the Celtics. I don't think he'll lead them to a championship. I do think that he'll lead them maybe to a Game 7 of the conference finals. If not, bounce a ball here and there, maybe to the finals. We'll have to see. But I do think I concur with you on the Bucks. I think I do think I want to see Giannis come out and erase those previous two bad playoff losses to the Raptors and the Heat, respectively. He's a very likable guy, a very easy guy to root for. His story is just wonderful. It's impossible not to root for the guy. He hasn't given anybody a valid reason not to root for him. He's not arrogant. He's not these typical cocky athletes that think they're God's great gift to the earth. He's a humble man from humble beginnings. And again, he's an easy guy to get behind and root for.
But I would say this. The Celtics would definitely beat the Nets.
Yeah. The Celtics are more well-rounded than the Nets are. It's kind of like back what I mentioned earlier about Toronto when we were talking about Kawhi stay with the Raptors, Toronto versus Los Angeles. They're more well-rounded because the bench is better, things like that. Yeah, I think because the Nets don't have that good of a bench. Nets have Joe Harris, good shooter. Obviously, Spencer Dinwiddie's a solid player. I mean, they get Karis LeVert here and there off the bench, although he may start this year. I'm not sure. We'll see how that works out. And the Nets don't have a bad bench, but it's obviously not as good a bench as I think the Celtics have. It's just a matter of maximizing on the potential of these guys. But no, the Celtics are mine. And obviously, I'll take the Bucks. Coming out of the Eastern Conference, I think we're doing to the big stage, and hopefully by then fans will be allowed back to the arena. As we didn't talk about the team that'll disappoint. I think the Heat kind of overachieved last year. I won't throw them in there. I don't want to throw them in there.
The team that's going to disappoint everybody. The team that's going to disappoint everybody.
I think I know what you're going to say. Yep, Brooklyn. I read your mind.
Because everybody has had the Nets in the finals automatically just based off of the talent that they have and the coaches they have, and like they have a Hall of Fame level player that's a coach.
Mm-hmm.
They have players that are really great on their team. But the thing is that will the chemistry mess? Will the execution mesh? I mean, like I said, I think that Steph Curry has a better chance of getting to the finals than KD and Kyrie Irving does. Because, like I said, KD, to me, he's not a leader. He's never been a leader. He's always been a big. Kyrie Irving, I wouldn't say that Kyrie Irving. I think that he wants to take the leadership role.
He just doesn't know how to do it. He doesn't do a very good job of it.
He just doesn't do a very good job of it. Right. He doesn't do a very good job of it. He's very weird.
Yeah.
But the thing I like about Kyrie is that he's direct. Okay,
He's
he's
blunt. He's a blunt
direct.
character.
He's
Weird character.
blunt.
Blunt.
Right, right, and that helps. You always want somebody to tell you what it is.
Hmm.
So that's what I think about Kyrie. But obviously, I don't think that that's gonna work out. And so many people they have him in the finals. They have the Nets in the finals, but I do not.
Name brand.
And
That's what it is. It's just name brand.
right, exactly. It's just you have KD who has not proven himself as I would not say that I wouldn't say that he hasn't proven himself. Well, put it like this. Put it like this. He's never won anything before going to the Warriors, right?
Yeah.
He
Got
had
to
never
Stanford
won
in the
anything
finals in 12. Blew a 3-1 lead to
before he
Golden
went to
State
the
in 16.
Warriors, right?
Yeah.
Right. So the thing is like how KD decides to operate, it remains to be seen. Okay, this is a new location, new transition. It's a new everything for him.
Hmm.
So I just don't see everything being able to edge out for this team, especially the first year.
Hmm.
The first year, I don't see them making the finals, and that's
Yeah.
automatic. So,
No, yeah.
um,
They're not.
like I said, like the Stephen A. Smiths and the Nick Wrights and the Colin Cowards, they have no clue what they're talking about
Per
when it
usual.
comes to
Water's wet.
appraising this team.
Hmm.
Like they are second round exits. All right. I would be surprised if they get to the conference finals. But like I said, they need to mesh well in order for this to happen. So and also, like I said, like you never do know what you're gonna get from Kyrie. Never know what you're gonna get from Kyrie. And this is Steve Nash first year as a head coach. First year. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much what it is. And plus, Kyrie Irving, right? He tries to take after the Kobe Bryant um type of realm in terms of like I want to take the last shot
Yeah.
or sorry or I want to be that guy.
Which is
You
admirable
know,
to an extent.
yeah, yeah. It's admirable, but the thing is, like, it could cost your team.
Yeah.
You know, like put it like this. I mean, like, put it like this. Like, if he was to include anybody to be able to take the last shot, like a Karis LeVert or somebody else, then that'll be way more better for the team.
Mm.
You know, like put it like this, like for example, like what for Magic Johnson used to do for James Worthy or Byron Scott. Sometimes other players will take the clutch shot.
Or even MJ. I mean, I'm not
And
comparing.
MJ as well.
I'm not
MJ as
comparing
well.
Kyrie to
Yeah,
MJ,
right.
but listen, wasn't afraid to kick it out to John Paxson in '93. That worked out. MJ wasn't afraid to kick it out to Steve Kerr in '97. You know, if it's the right play and you have an open man and you hit him up. You know, throw the ball to him. And the great players understand that. I mean, it can burn you if the
I
guy
mean, hey,
misses a shot.
look, even Kobe, Ron
Even
Artest.
right, exactly. 2010 game, it's 2010 game 7 in the finals. So yeah, there's if it's the right play, nobody's gonna knock you for it. It could burn you if the guy misses the shot, like it burned LeBron when he kicked it out to Danny Green and Danny Green missed a three. I mean, in that game, they ended up losing because of that. But it wasn't a bad play. Danny Green was wide open. So it's a smart play.
Bro, look. Danny Green was terrible.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, that's
He
why he's
played
not in LA
terrible.
anymore. He was
So
hurt. I know he said he was hurt, but still, I mean, that was a god awful run. I haven't seen, and listen. I know bad shooting when I see it. I watch the Knicks, but that was atrocious. My God, that he might as well be a Knick with that. But we'll move on now. I think we broke down the East enough to where there's a clear understanding of where we think each team is going to go. Let's move on to the Western Conference now. Western Conference is going to be a little bit more difficult to break down. I mean, teams emerged after Utah's had of if he's going to leave, at least not now because guys always demand trades, but Mitchell hasn't done that yet. Their only question is, will they keep Rudy Gobert? You could afford to lose Rudy Gobert, especially after the stupidity he pulled last February or March, I believe. So there's Utah in there, obviously the defending champion Lakers. You talk about Houston. Houston still has James Harden for now. They just got John Wall. You really don't know. I mean, we didn't think that Oklahoma City was going to do that much last year, and Oklahoma City ended up making a surprise playoff run all the way to Game 7 of the first round, scared the heck out of the Rockets.
A surprise playoff run? You mean a surprise playoff exit?
Well, I mean,
it's not really surprise. They exited right out of there.
Well, yeah, because they
got
weren't
themselves right out of there.
But
there was no run. It was an exit. It was a brief seat.
A surprise playoff berth.
It was a
surprise playoff appearance.
Moment. Appearance. All right,
one shining moment.
That makes more sense.
Right. Yeah, that's what. Well, listen. I mean, they were given a 0.1% chance by the odds makers last season to make the playoffs, and they ended up making it. And almost won. I think had it not been for the pandemic shutting everything down, I think they were at 47, 48 wins, something like that. So they could, or maybe less than that. Maybe they were in the 40s. I know their win total was in the 40s, so there was a good shot they could have made 50 wins, which would have been incredible for a team that wasn't projected to do all that much. Phoenix obviously adds Chris Paul. They had a strong conclusion to the season. People are saying they might be ready to take the next step. So
that team is an overrated team.
So you know what? In that case, I'll throw it to you. I'll give my 1 through 8 afterwards. Your 1 through 8. Who do you think's gonna make the playoffs out of the West this upcoming season?
I'm gonna say the Nuggets at 1.
Wow, really? Defending champion Lakers, not the 1 seed. Okay.
Nope, not the 1 seed.
Okay.
I would say the Mavericks. I'm gonna say the Mavericks too. Mavericks too. You know what? No, never mind.
No, make it.
I need to see. You know what? I need to see the list of all the teams because I'm having a tough time trying to remember all the teams right now. But hold on. So the Nuggets are 1.
I can pull it up. Okay. And, that'll if that makes it easier. We can. Let me see. Let me just pull up my little folder here. Live podcasting at its finest, folks. So you're looking at the conference as followed. Let me tilt my phone a little bit. So for the Western Conference, as it stands, the Lakers, the Jazz, the Grizzlies, the Pelicans, the Rockets, Warriors, Mavericks, Nuggets, Kings, Thunder, Timberwolves, Blazers, Spurs, Clippers, and Suns. Out of those teams, who is your pick to make it?
Okay, so the Nuggets at 1, Clippers 2, Lakers 3.
Lakers 3, okay.
Lakers 3. Warriors 4.
You put them that high?
Yeah, I'm putting them that high.
Okay.
I'm gonna say the Jazz at 5. Jazz at 5.
That's fair. That's where they've been the last few years anyway, so that makes sense. You put them there.
And then I'm gonna say the Rockets at 6.
Fair.
And then you know what? I'm gonna say because of the chemistry issue that's gonna happen with the front office, I'm gonna switch the Rockets with the Mavericks.
Okay.
Mavericks are 6.
And the Rockets are what? 7?
Rockets are 7.
And who's your 8?
And I'm gonna take the Grizzlies.
That's fair. I think the Grizzlies are ready. Remember, the Grizzlies, people forget, the Grizzlies, some teams were helped by the shutdown because, the Blazers, for example, got a chance to catch their breath and make a run after that. Other teams weren't. The Grizzlies are one of the teams that got a raw deal when the shutdown hit. Obviously, through it was out of everyone's control. It's no one's fault. It happened. But the Grizzlies.
Wait, hold on. The Grizzlies or the Pelicans. So it's going to be either or out of those two.
Another fair pick because obviously I think the Pelicans are a team to watch. Obviously, they're exciting. I mean, you're talking about Lonzo being there, and he's a good facilitator, a good playmaker, maybe not the best shooter, but he's got a great passing ability. Ingram is a very solid player and fun player to watch. I like Josh Hart potentially coming off the bench, providing them some second unit I don't. He's not. He averaged 5 points a game in his last season with the Lakers. I don't know if he's much of an offensive threat, but he plays with passion. He plays with tenacity. He's not an atrocious defender per se. And from what I've seen, I'm not a deep analytical guy, but from the eye test, I hate to sound like a guy straight out of 1966, but from what the eye test told me, not bad. He plays kind of. I'm not going to say he's the defender Patrick Beverley is, and he's not nearly as annoying, but he plays with the same level of intensity and passion, which is good. He has a good work ethic to him. I find so they're an interesting squad to watch. I think they're on the come up, and we'll have to see how Stan Van Gundy goes about coaching them. We'll have to see what Stan Van Gundy can get out of them and what he can teach Zion now as he prepares to get back into the fray as a head coach after it previously not having worked out so good in Detroit with the Pistons. So that's fair. Grizzlies, when this shutdown hit in March, hard to believe it was 9 months ago, it's about to be a year, they were 32-33, and they were in the 8th seed firmly. I think they're about 4.5 games ahead of the next best team. And their momentum. There's an old song by the Doors called "L.A. Woman," and there's this part that talks about mojo rising. The song. Mets fans will be familiar with that song if you know what I'm talking about. And their mojo was rising. Their mojo was definitely rising, and it got halted by the shutdown. And they lost that momentum when they came back. They fell out the 8th seed. I think that this is their chance to ascend into the 8th seed. But if I had to go 1 through 8, I mean, you know who my 8 is. I just agreed with you. I take them at 8. I'd have, it's tough. I have to respect the defending champions. I have to put the Lakers at 1, just because.
Hold on. The Lakers at 1, huh?
Despite
knowing,
Marvin folks,
hold on. Despite knowing that LeBron is not really a regular season type of player, he's not.
But you still have AD there. They're not going to sit them both. They'll sit one or the other each and every game. Like they're not going to. Rarely will they both take a game off.
All right. Okay. All right. It's your list. It's your list. Go ahead.
For those of you that are going to watch the Zoom later, you should see Marvin's face. You're going to see it. It's hilarious. But okay, I'll put them there out of respect to the talent that they have with those two. I don't think Frank Vogel is going to sit them both unless it's like under the regular season. They've already clinched. There's nothing to play for in the regular season. Then of course, yeah, you can afford to sit them both because what does it matter? You don't want to get injured for a meaningless game. But they'll alternate one or the other rest days. And the NBA, I think, is about either they are about to or they just changed the rules on how often you can rest players. So that kind of tinkers with it a little bit. I'll put them at 1. I'll put Denver 2. Would it surprise me if Denver was the 1? No. But I'll put them at 2 for now. Love Denver's squad. I hope they take a big leap this year. 3, I'm putting the Minnesota Timberwolves. I'm kidding. I wouldn't do that. Number 3 is interesting. I'll put the Clippers 3 because same thing. They got enough talent. They should be in the top 4 at least. I'll put the Clippers 3. Number 4, breaking news. The Knicks are waiving Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. So breaking news live on the podcast. Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, Charlotte Hornets legend and Bobcats legend, just got waived by the Knicks. So to his Knicks career. Once a Knick, always a Knick. Number 4. This is a tough list to put together because this conference is so good. Number 4.
I don't know if it's really that good.
I mean, I'll have to give respect.
It's wide open.
I'll put the Warriors 4 because the Warriors should be good enough to get 4. You got Draymond in there. James Wiseman looked pretty good so far in the preseason. I think Steve Kerr will get.
I'm hearing from Steve Kerr that he's the modern day like David Robinson for some reason.
Well, the coaches
that remains to be seen.
Players.
That remains to be seen.
I hope he is.
That remains to be seen. I need to see that. So
I hope he is. Listen, James Wiseman, he didn't play that much in college. I think he was suspended for a while for some memorabilia controversy because the NCAA, The NCAA is what you would call FUBAR. It's beyond repair. It's beyond perform. It's just such a
Yeah,
corrupt.
well, I heard that they're gonna start paying players now.
That's a rumor, and they should. That's a different podcast for a different day. But they're just
Right.
they've been so corrupt for so long. It's so hypocritical. But anyway, James Wiseman. Listen, I hope he's the next David Robinson. That'd be great. I think Steve Kerr will definitely get the most out of him. So I'll put the Warriors 4. Obviously, not having Clay there hurts a lot. I would have put them there. I say a little bit higher if Clay was back. But that absence hurts. But Steph will carry him. Draymond will be his typical Draymond self, and I think Kerr gets the most out of
Does
Wiseman.
Steph win MVP?
It's a good question.
Wait, hold on.
Remember,
that'll happen
the two conference
later
award.
on in the podcast. Later on the podcast. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's a two. Yeah, it's a two conference. We'll get to that. It's a two conference award. So it'll be tough. I'll put Warriors at number 4. Mavericks are interesting because Porzingis is not healthy. Surprise, surprise. He's gonna miss time at the beginning of the year. He's had knee problems. He's 7'3". He's lanky, and a big man like of that size with leg problems, any kind of leg problems, ankle, knee, whatever, ACL. Given the fact that, of course, he's torn his ACL before, that's not good. Maybe I'm gonna have to slide the Mavericks down a little bit. I'll put the Jazz at 5 because I agree with you. The Jazz have pretty much been a perennial 4, 5, 6 seed. Since Donovan Mitchell came in the league. So that's probably pretty much where they'll be. I gotta say, John Wall's looked good so far. Jury's still out. Obviously, he hasn't played a full 72-game season yet. He's still getting his legs back under him. Didn't look bad. For a guy that hasn't played in 2 years, almost, pretty much. Yeah, no, over 2 years. Did not look bad. I'm rooting for him. Hope he comes back healthy. Hope he has a nice comeback. So we'll see what happens there. I'll put the Rockets 6. As long as Harden's there, they'll always have a shot. We'll see what DeMarcus Cousins does in there. So they're my 6. Actually, no, I'll put them 5. I just said I would slide Dallas down. So they'll be 5. I'll put Dallas at the 6. No, what the heck am I saying? I'm losing my mind over here. I put Utah at 5. So the Mavericks are 6. Then I'd put the Rockets 7, although I could interchange the 2 and put the Rockets 6. That's what I'll do. Jazz 5, Rockets 6, Mavericks 7. And number 8, you know what? I got to give them their respect. I think the Blazers can crack the 8 seed. And when you watch this Zoom later, you can see the smoke coming out of Marvin's ears.
Oh, my gosh.
Save it for the slander session. Save it for the slander. When we get to the slander session, you can tee off on the Blazers. So now to the playoffs. Who do we think is going, same question as these, surprise of the Western Conference playoffs, disappointment of the Western Conference playoffs, and who do we think will ultimately come out of the Western Conference and represent the conference in the NBA Finals?
Surprise, I'm going to say it'll be the Nuggets.
Mm-hmm.
I can see them getting to the finals. I think that I think it's possible. Sorry.
Don't apologize.
I think that it's possible that the Nuggets can have a 2015 Warriors finals run. So I think that that's very possible. And they could get to a finals. I'm not saying that they'll win a championship.
They can get there.
But they can get there.
And they've never been. They've never been, so this is if ever a franchise is going to have a team make the finals, much like Toronto a couple years ago, this is the squad that can finally do that.
Right.
We'll see.
I would say that that Jokic is more so the modern day Larry Bird, more so than Luka Doncic, who is more so the right-handed version of James Harden. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I mean, and neither comparisons are bad. I love them both.
Right.
I think if
they're
you're
both Hall of Famers.
But James Harden's. If James Harden retired tomorrow, he'd be a Hall of Famer, no question. So I mean, yeah, but because Jokic, people forget. Well, those that are younger, because I'm about to say anybody that watched Larry Bird, definitely remembers. Larry Bird's one of the greatest passers the game has ever seen, ever. Like Larry Bird's top 3 all-time passers, and I don't think it's 3. I think it's like 2. I think the only passer better than Larry Bird is Magic.
Yeah, right. Right.
Anybody that's
And
ever
you know what's crazy?
pass, it's a
People
claim.
try to say it's LeBron. People try to say it's
He's
LeBron,
good.
but they're literally bugging.
No, he's top 10.
They're
LeBron's a top
literally
10
bugging.
passer, not top 5.
I would say he's top 10. Top 10 to top 15.
Yeah, definitely. He's a great passer. Hey, definitely one of the best the game has seen, but nowhere close to Bird. All due respect to LeBron, nowhere close to Bird as a passer. Just our respective opinions. So so your biggest surprises could be the Nuggets. I could concur with that. Did you say what your biggest disappointment was?
Biggest disappointment are the Lakers.
Okay, all right.
The Lakers.
Because you think they'll fall to Denver, maybe not even to Denver, maybe along the way, and I think they'll get out the first round, obviously, but maybe in the second round they fall, maybe in the conference finals they fall and don't defend their title.
Right.
All right, so that's
last year's playoff run. Right.
Uh-huh.
Was LeBron's worst playoff run. Worst.
Now you told me your reason why, but the listeners have never heard your reasoning. So tell the listeners why you think it was his worst run.
Okay, my reasoning is because LeBron's run was terrible. Okay, he went up against the Blazers.
Knocked them out in 5.
In 5, right? Now I'm not gonna get on Damian Lillard just yet. All right, we're gonna hold off on Damian Lillard. Then he goes over to Hardhead. All right.
Yeah.
All right, and Westbrook, Beast Brick.
Westbrook.
Great Brick. All bricks.
Nothing but bricks.
But the thing is that then the next thing that he then sorry, and oh man, I'm really bad right now. You're gonna edit this stuff, right?
No, it's fine. You sound fine. Put too much pressure on yourself, my friend. You sound great.
All right.
It's live. People appreciate that. If it were scripted and we sounded fake, nobody would appreciate that.
Wait, this is live? Like this is on like
it's live actual? To tape. It's live to tape. Basically.
Live to tape.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. But anyways, with the where was I? Okay, so the Nuggets were a very young team. Very young team.
Right.
Like Jamal Murray, this may be like his second year in the playoffs. The Heat, all they had was Jimmy Butler as the veteran. Okay. Right. Andre Iguodala, he could not service any type of juice left that he had from the Warriors days. He had nothing. Okay. Jimmy Butler was playing with a whole bunch of rookies.
Right.
Okay. And then on top of that, like this run, right? Hold on. The Lakers, they had the best roster in the Western Conference in terms of maturity, in terms of maturity and IQ. Okay, with Rondo and LeBron, and they had very impactful players. Very impactful players. I would also say that if they had the Clippers run, I'm not run. If they had the Nuggets slate of series, like if they had to go up against the Jazz or the Mavericks or the Clippers, that would be a more tougher run. Way more tougher run. And then and then like let's say that they didn't, let's say that they went up against a more healthy Heat team. And the crazy thing about the whole thing is that it took them 6 games to beat a Jimmy Butler with a bunch of rookies.
Pretty much.
6 games.
Wait a minute. How dare you disrespect our king, Tyler Hero, like this? The nerve of you.
Look, Tyler Hero has a lot of confidence.
Yes, I'm kidding, of course.
Highly confident, right? and he's very he's very skillful,
Mm,
but we don't really know what he can become. Can he become an all-star? It's possible.
maybe.
But the thing is that everything remains to be seen. Maybe this is just his only playoff run where he goes off like that. Maybe it is. We don't know. But the thing is that he's not a superstar. Jimmy Butler, what he's proven to me is that he's a borderline superstar. That's
Yeah.
all he's proven.
Yeah.
Okay.
If he
But
does more, he'll be elevated in
right,
status.
right.
Yeah. Right now, he's at
If he ends up winning a championship, he's a superstar.
yeah.
Or put it like this: if he goes to a finals, he's a superstar. I can make the case that he's going to the Hall of Fame.
You could.
But the thing is that he's not that guy. All right. He's not a superstar yet.
Not yet.
He needs to prove himself to be that.
Right.
Okay. But the thing is that LeBron's run was very weak, extremely weak. And the thing is like they also like I would say that Adam Silver, he had the I would say that LeBron wanted this season to come back on so that he could have a potential championship.
Mm.
So that's basically my reasoning. I mean, I also have a few other reasons why. I would say that the fact that that they're going back and forth to each team to each stadiums. I feel like that hurt the series in terms of like what's it called?
Competitiveness because hostile crowds,
right.
like that home
hostile
crowd. They give you a boost.
Exactly.
Or they scare you if they're a hostile crowd.
Exactly. Now wait, I wouldn't say that it's asterisks. I wouldn't say that.
Mm-hmm.
But I would not be mad if somebody make that hard case that it really is.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't be mad if any of the legends of like Michael Jordan or anybody else said that it was an asterisk.
Yeah,
I really wouldn't.
Which would cause, I would just, not because of that I would disagree, but just because it would cause 17 straight months of just endless stupid conversations on ESPN.
Right.
Yeah, that's the only reason.
Right. Exactly. So
yeah.
So yeah, that's my reasoning for why I believe the Lakers had a very overrated championship run. Highly overrated.
That's fair. No, that's fair. People would disagree. People would agree. I understand where you're coming from. I tend to disagree just because, obviously the pandemic was out of, like I said earlier, was out of everyone's control. And I think that it was harder because Damian Lillard, who I know you'll get to later, your favorite player in the whole wide world, Damian Lillard, made the point that, it's a little harder just because everybody's in the same place. You're not traveling. Everybody's well rested. And so therefore it's a little bit more of an equalizer just because you're not traveling back and forth, and you're basically playing in an almost like when they play the Super Bowl on a neutral site. It's pretty much a neutral site, and so I think that kind of lends some credit to that title the Lakers got. My biggest surprise, I think.
Oh wait, what was there another category that you had?
We were going to do who we think Coach of the Year, MVP, Rookie of the Year.
I'm not talking about that. The category for the disappointment.
Well, disappointment. No, you covered it. You said the Lakers would be your disappointment. You said the Denver Nuggets would be your surprise, and ultimately, who you feel is going to come out of the West is the Denver Nuggets.
I said the Nuggets. I was.
Yeah.
Did I say the Nuggets? Okay. All right.
You felt that they would have a run to the finals, and yeah, they could with that roster. They absolutely could. I'll say, I think the biggest surprise,
or the Clippers, or the Clippers could have a very
and that plays perfectly into what I'm about to say. Because you know what? Listen, I know it's the easy thing right now to slander the Clippers. They're low-hanging fruit, as they should be, given the debacle they just had and all the craziness that's come out of all the stories that have come out of their locker room since. But I'm going to go against the pack. I'm going to zig when everyone else zags. And I'm going to say that I think the Clippers are going to be a surprise. I think, for as much as we malign Paul George, and he's easy to malign, I think that, he finally puts it together in the postseason. I think, They get rid of all this. I think they clear the air. Doc Rivers is gone. Chance for a new start with a new coach and a fresh system. Yeah, he's internal. He was an internal hire. But you know what? So was Nick Nurse. And Nick Nurse changed the tone in that locker room to where, you know what,
That's a
they
good
started
point.
to play a different way from when they did when Dwayne Casey was there. And so I think that you'll see that with the Clippers. I think there's a chance now that they can finally, hopefully, get all the bad stuff out, clear it out as teammates, talk about it man to man, and go out there and play some basketball. I think the Clippers are primed to finally break through. And I think they're primed for a deep playoff run that could get them to as far as the conference finals, and which they've never been, and maybe even further. It all hinges on, of course, not so much Kawhi as much as Paul George and some of the other guys in that team. But I think Paul George is motivated. I think Paul George is, of course, he hears all the slander. Undoubtedly, he reads all of the negative tweets and opinions and columns
Of
of him.
course.
And I think he's going to, instead of becoming a mental, that's not a politically correct term, instead of becoming a mental dwarf, if you will, the other term I was going to use is not exactly that appropriate.
Right. Oh
You
wait,
know,
and to be honest with you, another surprise could be the Warriors.
could
You
be.
never do know
But I
how they're
think
gonna
people
come out.
expect them to return to form. Maybe not the form of the dynasty, but I think people expect them to at least make the playoffs, which is why I didn't cast them as a surprise. Because when you get Steph back in the
Right.
fold, that shooter in the game back in the fold, people expect you to do good things at minimum, if not great things. So the Clippers are a surprise for me. I think Paul George has a renaissance. I'll leave it at that. And hopefully he does. There's
Your
things,
disappointment.
disappointment. You know what? I think the Mavericks take a step back. People may say I'm biased as a Knicks
Okay.
fan, and my feelings on Porzingis, but it's not even that. I think, listen, credit being objectively as possible. When Kristaps is healthy, he's a tremendously solid player, a good shooter, not the best defender. But that's a lot of almost nobody plays defense in the NBA anymore. So that really doesn't bother me that much. Good shooter, good on the three ball. Like when he's on, he's a joy to watch. He's had a few
He
35
la-
point.
he lacks motor.
And he lacks health, obviously, unfortunately too.
Right.
And so that being said, him not being there, it hurts. But at the same time, when him and Luka played together, they never really had tremendous chemistry. And it almost looked like in some games Luka was taking a back seat and deferring to Kristaps. And they never had a dominant game where they were both on and Luka scored 30 and Kristaps scored 30. There was never that game. I kept waiting
Like
for
it was forced.
right,
Like it was
exactly.
forced.
It was forced pretty much. So I think the Mavericks, I think they're due for a little bit of a regression. Still be a playoff team. But I don't think they're going to achieve I don't think they're going to take this gigantic leap that people think they're going to take and like go to the second round or something like that. I think they're still going to stay. They're going to tread water. They're not going to go as far as people think that they will go. So my surprise is the Clippers. My disappointment would be Dallas, who I think is going to come out of the West. I've learned in recent times, as far as winning the finals is a different ballgame. No pun intended. But as far as getting to the finals, especially now that the roster is a little bit better, obviously, than what it was when he first got to Los Angeles, I've learned not to bet against LeBron James. As a player, can't say I care for him all that much. Can't say I like him as a player.
Bro.
But I can't. Every time I bet against the guy to get to the finals, I lose. So I'm not going to bet against him. I don't mean literally bet. I'm not a gambler.
I'm cashing it. I am cashing it out. I'm putting all the diamonds, all the rubies, all the gold on LeBron. On LeBron not getting to the finals this year.
Okay.
Okay. Last year, that year was favored for LeBron. Like everything was set up for LeBron to get to the final. Everything. Literally everything. All right.
I got him going, folks. I got him going.
All right. Literally everything was set up for him. Okay. And like I said, this is his worst finals run. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's had some difficult ones. Okay. The Warriors
was difficult.
2016.
Yeah.
Was his third difficult. Okay. It was his third most difficult. His third most difficult run.
Yeah.
Okay. I would say that 2012 was his.
I put it at the top. That's the ultimate for me.
That one's probably the first one. That's the first.
Well, no, actually, no. Let me contradict myself. 2012 second for me. 2013 is the ultimate because the Pacers took them 7 and the Spurs obviously that went 7. That series nearly ended if Ray Allen doesn't hit that 3. So 2013 to me, that's the ultimate. That was a very tough finals run for him.
2013. 2012 is when he had the breakthrough the Boston Celtics.
That's when he was down 3-2
very tough
against the Celtics.
Right.
He had that all-time great performance on the road in Game 6.
Probably the greatest of his career.
Yes,
okay.
Undoubtedly.
But the reason why, that I would say that the Warriors won is number 3 is because they had the best roster in the league, the Cavs. Before the season started in 2016, the Cavs they were favored to win the championship because they had the best roster in the league in 2016 by Las Vegas odds. And guess what? They were right.
Yeah, they won 57 games.
Now the thing is that the Warriors, the only superstar on that team was Steph Curry. Okay.
Clay's a star.
Klay Thompson is a star. Okay.
Draymond say is a star.
Draymond Green is a role player. Okay, a role player who cannot do anything without Steph or Klay Thompson on the floor. Now guess what? Now guess what? He has played at a very good level. Okay, I'm not gonna sit here and disrespect him. He's a Hall of Famer. He's gonna go to the Hall of Fame. But if not for being on the Warriors, he would not make the Hall of Fame. Okay.
It's all about who you're surrounded with, yeah. I mean, he has a great work ethic. Obviously, he's very intense. He's drawn comparisons to Rodman with his intensity and his work ethic. But it's
just because you have comparisons in terms of your intensity and how you talk and things like that, and your motivations to Rodman, does not mean that you're Rodman. Okay, it doesn't mean you're Rodman. All right. Now Draymond Green, he did not win the Defensive Player of the Year in 2016. He won it in 2017.
Right.
Okay. And KD was there. So now I would say to Draymond Green, he's like I said, he's a role player. Okay. And put it like this. Role players have made the Hall of Fame. Okay. Kevin McHale was a role player. Scottie Pippen was a role player. They're role player stars.
Role player, yeah.
They're role player stars. Okay.
Robert Horry, had some big moments as a role player.
Yeah, but role play, he's not a Hall of Famer.
Well, he's not a Hall of Famer, but I'm saying he was a very good role player that had a lot of clutch moments. He's regarded as one of the clutchest players of his era because of the big shots he hit.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I would not really disagree with that, but I would not say that he's a role player star.
No. Yeah. It's fair.
Right. And then and then let me see. But yeah, so that's what I'm trying to say essentially. And then like as soon as they got to the finals, right? Why? Okay. Now wait. LeBron is better than Steph Curry, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, nobody would disagree with that. Unless you're like one of these crazy Steph fans, nobody would disagree with that.
Okay. LeBron is better than Steph Curry.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
And then after that, you have Tristan Thompson and Kevin Love, who are offsetting Draymond Green.
Right.
Okay. They were both getting boards. Okay. And then on top of that, let's not forget to mention that J.R. Smith, yes, I know J.R. Smith can be a locker room issue. I know that he could be sometimes too high, but he was very impactful in that series.
Yes, he was.
Extremely impactful. Okay, you can make the case that he was sometimes the third best player on the team.
Yeah, that Game 7 he had was huge.
Right, and guess what? He was the one who cut off Andre Iguodala from dunking.
which paved the way for LeBron to make that now iconic block.
Right, exactly. And the thing is that and people they misconstrued how impactful that he was in that series. He was making threes all over the place.
Yeah, I remember that Game 7. I watched the games. I remember that Game 7 like it was yesterday, and I remember JR second half of that game, really, every time the Cavs needed a big three, JR was there. He was, as you said, the third best player on the floor. So, yeah, I mean, that's fair. When you stack up LeBron's runs, I do want to get to.
And my question is about this, bro.
Okay.
If the Cavs have the best roster in the league,
mm-hmm.
right? Why were they not 73-9? How come that they didn't sweep the Warriors? They should have. It's
a fair. Well, I mean, the Raptors
won 56
games that year.
Huh?
Raptors won 56 games that year. Raptors were the 2 seed.
No, but they should have had 73 wins. The Lakers should have, because they have the best roster in the league.
Cavs.
They have the best roster in the league.
Yeah.
You got Kyrie Irving offsetting Steph Curry. Okay. You got J.R. Smith, who was sometimes on a Klay Thompson level of play. All right. Now guess what? Harrison Barnes played horrific.
Yeah.
Right.
Played himself out of Golden State.
Not only that, wasn't Steph injured?
Yeah, he was battling some ankle problems, if I remember
correctly.
Wasn't
he coming back from injury from a sprained MCL for 2 weeks?
Yep, against Portland.
People always want to talk about the physicality, et cetera, but they always forget that Steph was injured at some point during the playoffs.
Yeah,
like badly. We did not know whether or not if he was going to come back.
Right.
So basically, what I would say is that the Cavs should have swept the Warriors right out of there.
It's a fair point. No, it's a fair point. With the kind of roster construction that was the case back then, and it's a debate that'll go on definitely until the end of time when people look back on a series that arguably is the most polarizing NBA Finals in the history.
Highly overrated run. I mean, high. Plus, on top of that, the Warriors, they lost 9 games in the playoffs. They lost 9 games in the playoffs.
Only losing 9 the entire season.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
The Cavs, they only lost 4, I believe.
Yeah.
Wait, was it 4? I think it was 4.
They swept the Hawks. They swept the Pistons in the first 2 rounds. Pistons got swept in the first round. Hawks got swept in the second round. The conference finals, Raptors took them 6.
Okay.
Warriors went 7. They lost 5.
That's 5. So the thing is like, look, they just had the better team.
Yeah.
Okay. They had the better team. All right, but you know what else is funny too? How come that everybody wants to talk about? All right. I'm gonna leave LeBron alone right now. I've already gone too.
I think the slander session on him. We might have to say. I will say this: if you want to hear the next half of, because we're going to get to Dame in the next show. If you want to hear the next half of the slander session, which we are having right now with LeBron James, you should listen to Marvin's podcast. It's called Miles Ahead, MILES Ahead. You should know how to spell that. The Miles Ahead podcast with Marvin McIntyre. I'm going to be on his show in a little bit, and we're going to talk about the other aspects of athletes deserving of his slander. Of course, I'm talking to my buddy Marvin McIntyre here on the Mike New Haven podcast, episode 43. Let's wrap up real quick, rapid fire with this. Gun to your head, who wins MVP?
That's a good one. Shoot. I think I'm going to go with Luka Doncic. Wait, hold on. You know what? Since I'm gonna go with the Nuggets to get the 1 seed,
you're picking Jokic.
Go with Jokic.
Okay, so Jokic is your MVP pick. MVP.
Dark horse is Steph.
That's fair. MVP. It's tough. Giannis is so impactful. I can't bet against him. I really can't. I wouldn't be surprised if Giannis repeats his MVP. I think you always have to put LeBron in the conversation. You can't leave
Right. Yeah,
him
that's
out the
true. That's
conversation.
true.
So if he won MVP, it's kind of like when Barry Bonds was winning MVP or MJ. It's like, yeah, of course, he makes sense. Or Gretzky, because they're that great. I mean, okay, you always have to at least have him in the conversation. So, but I think Giannis repeats. Okay, Coach of the Year.
Oh, three. That's in a great. That's a
It's a
great
great company.
great company. Larry Bird,
I
Will
think MJ did
Chamberlain.
it.
Who?
I think MJ might have done it. MJ did it 3 straight years.
No, he didn't
Never
do
did.
it. He
Oh, he
didn't do
never
it.
did. Wow. Okay, I didn't know that.
No, he
When he's
didn't.
MVP every time. I thought like during that first three-peat, I'm about to say, didn't Clyde Drexler win MVP in 92?
No, he didn't. That was MJ. That was
All right, that
MJ.
was MJ. Like, I think MJ won MVP all 3 years in the first three-peat, not the second three-peat, because I know Malone won in 97. But hang on, we'll figure it out later.
Nah. It was Charles Barkley won in '93.
Yeah, Charles Barkley won in 93. Okay, so MJ never did it, so that would be great company. Coach of the Year.
Mike Malone.
Mike Malone. Fair pick. Going with Denver once more. You know what? I think if Thibodeau gets enough out of the Knicks, you don't have to have a winning record to be coach of the year. I think if Thibodeau has these kids playing well and there's significant improvement, I hate to sound biased as a Knicks fan, but I could see Thibodeau really reestablishing himself as a top coach in the league and winning
Wait,
coach
hold
of the
on.
year.
I changed my mind.
Not
Steve
Mike
Kerr.
Malone. Steve
Steve
Kerr.
Kerr.
Okay, so Steve Kerr,
Yep.
yeah, Steve Kerr could do that too. You know what? I'll be out there with my take. I'll pick Tom Thibodeau to win Coach of the Year if he's able to get the Knicks to a level where improvement is really obvious and the Knicks look a lot better than they have in recent times. And boy, am I rooting for that to happen. Last but not least, we will round out the portion one of this crossover between the Mike to New Haven and Miles Ahead podcast with who we think will take home Rookie of the Year. So, Marvin, who do you think is
Oh,
Rookie of the Year?
that's LaMelo Ball. LaMelo Ball.
LaMelo Ball. You know what?
I think that he averages somewhere around like um let's say about 14, 8, and 6.
I'm gonna go with Denny Advija out in Washington. I think Denny. People will soon realize just how good this kid is. He's looked great in preseason. He's ready. I'd love to
Okay.
be biased and go Obi Toppin, but I don't think Obi Toppin's taking it. I think Denny Advija is the guy out of Washington, especially now that he's with Westbrook and Beal and playing for a good coach like Scotty Brooks, who finally has a little bit better of a roster than he's had in recent times. You watch out, folks. I think Denny Advija's taking it. So this concludes episode, like I said, the first half, I should say, of this crossover between the Miles Ahead and Mike New Haven podcast. If you want to catch me on Marvin's show, check out the Miles Ahead podcast and listen to Marvin's other episodes too. Marvin does a great job. He covers the NBA, he covers the NFL, he gives his picks, he gives his predictions, he gives his thoughts, and so much more. So you won't regret it. Subscribe to his podcast, Miles Ahead, MILES, ahead, of course, and leave a 5-star rate and review. So Marvin, before we part, any words to the people? Where can they find you on social media? Anything else you want to say?
Yeah, my Instagram account for my podcast is Miles Ahead Pod. That's MILES. Sorry. That's that's MILES Ahead Pod. Make sure you follow that. And my slogan is let's not be inches, feet, meters, nor yards. Let's be miles ahead. And just check me out. I'm always trying to be consistent with my content, and I try to not be like everybody else. I always try to be not narrative driven. I go straight to the facts, and I always give the right perspective, which
All
is
right.
my perspective.
All right. Well, you can find me, folks, on Twitter at Mike in New Haven. You know where to find me by now there. If you're not following me there, follow me at Mike in New Haven. Very simple handle that you can find on Twitter. The podcast is available everywhere: Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, iTunes, anywhere you want to find your podcast. We're there. We're on Amazon now, too, so that's pretty cool. And we're going to be on YouTube now because we are live tape, and we're going to be on YouTube. So, like I said, you can catch me.
Also,
What was that?
I'm sorry about that. Also, my podcast is also available on Spotify, Apple, Google, Anchor, five other platforms as well. I don't want to leave that out. I'm sorry about that.
No, please get it in there. The more people can find you that way. So good. As you heard Marvin, you can find the Miles Ahead podcast on those fronts. You can find the Mike New Haven podcast on those fronts. And like I said, you can follow him on Instagram at Miles Ahead Pod. You can follow me on Twitter at Mike in New Haven. Marvin, you got one more thing?
One more thing.
No problem. Go ahead.
I also have a Twitter account.
Mhm.
I haven't been using it yet. But the name of it is. Sorry, I'm trying to just get into it
No,
right
it's
now.
okay. It's okay. It's been a great podcast so far. We've covered a lot. And Marvin will
Yeah.
momentarily be giving you his Twitter for all the world to follow, including yours truly. I'll just count in.
It's at Marvin MC
Mhm.
INTYR 1.
No underscores?
No underscores. It's just Marvin M and then NCINTYR 1.
Okay, so you can follow Marvin there on Twitter. Like I said, me on Twitter at Mike in New Haven, as you already know by now. Subscribe to my podcast if you haven't already, and leave a 5-star rate review. So on behalf of Marvin McIntyre, I am Mike Cologne, and we will see you next time.